Hey guys, welcome back to the ManLab. Here's a mini episode where we're going to be covering in detail CJC and Ipamorelin peptide blend. And we've got Alex here to help with us understand this further. So first of all, Alex, let's have a look at what the individual ones are. What's CJC 1295?
So yeah, this is probably the most sought after, or at least the most commonly requested peptide blends that we offer. When you're dealing with this category in the peptide world, the objective of both of them is really to improve human growth hormone levels. So we kind of refer to these as growth hormone stimulating or growth hormone producing peptide hormones. The combination of the two has different characteristics of why we combine them, which we'll go into detail today. But just to kind of clear this up, the growth hormone releasing hormone, which is a GHRH, is what CJC 1295 is. And then the growth hormone releasing peptide, which is a GHRP, is what Ipamorelin is. They're both technically peptides, but they just give them different categorical names, basically.
Perfect. So with that different category, what is the difference between a hormone and a peptide in the growth hormone releasing?
One has to do with the physical size of it. So when we're dealing with these peptides, they're chains of amino acids. In the growth hormone releasing hormones, they're usually larger. They're larger chains of amino acids in the 20 to 40 range, 20 amino acid to 40 range, where the growth hormone releasing peptides are really small, just a couple, like 3 or 4 or 6 peptide chains along, or amino acid chains along. They also have to do with how they function in the body and how they essentially work. Like growth hormone releasing peptides go through the stomach ghrelin pathway to increase growth hormone, where the GHRHs mimic the hypothalamus' signal to the pituitary gland to produce more growth hormone. And just so you kind of step out kind of from the really far perspective, the objective of using any products to stimulate growth hormone is to get these HGH benefits. And the ways our body works is your pituitary gland produces what's called human growth hormone. Human growth hormone then has to go through the body, has to go through the bloodstream, and has to go through the liver to become what's known as IGF-1, which is insulin-like growth factor 1. So really, when you think about it, like kind of think about raw fuel that comes out of the earth as like crude oil. It has to go through a refinement process to become gasoline that your car understands how to use for fuel. Our pituitary gland produces this raw fuel component, which is called human growth hormone. It has to go through the liver to become the thing that our receptor sites in our body understands, which is called IGF-1. So what you're doing by taking these peptides is you're asking the body to produce more of the original kind of core thing, which is human growth hormone, to get a significant boost in the kind of process through the liver of IGF-1, right?
Okay.
And so by taking two, we'll talk about why that stack is better than one individual one. Mm-hmm. But by taking two, you're getting it kind of through two different ways of creating growth hormone. You also get an opportunity to improve the pulsing of the pituitary gland and the strength of the pulse. So not only do you get more frequent pulses, but you get larger pulses in doing a blend this way.
Find out if you may have low testosterone for free with the ADAM test. Now, sometimes it's a little bit nerve-wracking to go into a clinic to get a full blood panel to find out your hormone levels. And sometimes you might just want to sort of kick the tires just a little bit. If you are that person, the ADAM test is for you. All it is a couple of questions that are completely non-intrusive, non-invasive, that will help give an indication to you whether you may or may not have low testosterone. And the best part is the ADAM test is accurate up to 88% of the time. So for something as simple as a questionnaire, that is a very high number. Now, if you want to make use of that, you can do it online right now. It takes less than 30 seconds to fill out, and it is at bit.ly/free ADAM test. That's free ADAM test. Now, if you don't want to remember that, the link is in the description of wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. And then after you've filled out the questionnaire, you will now have a better idea of whether you may or may not have low testosterone, and if you need to take the next step, which is a detailed blood panel with a clinic such as T Clinics USA. So again, to make use of that, go to bit.ly/free ADAM test, and let's continue to making men great again. Let's get back to the show.
Perfect. So let's look into that. Like, why are we stacking these two, and why is it always a combination of a hormone with a peptide? You don't want to stack a hormone with a hormone or a peptide with a peptide.
You're going to kind of avoiding redundancies. So generally, you won't see people stacking something like Ipamorelin with CJC 1295 or Ipamorelin with Ipamorelin, because those are all in that growth hormone releasing category. you oftentimes wouldn't see, again, an Ipamorelin with something like hexarelin or Ipamorelin with GHRP2 or GHRP6, because again, those are growth hormone releasing peptides. Not to say that that doesn't exist, because there are people that get fancy, of course, and trying to create like unique things. But in common practice, you would want to take one out of either side of those categories to get the best of both worlds. So you would get a more frequent pulse and a larger quantity of pulses, or larger strength of it, and you would also improve the half-life, and you would also kind of avoid the desensitization of how the body's producing the growth hormone by kind of expressing different receptor sites. So taking one off of each side of the category is what the purpose of that combination is. And just to kind of let you know, there's also like another blend, which we'll talk about at some point, which is Tesamorelin with Ipamorelin versus this being CJC 1295 with Ipamorelin.
Yeah.
And Ipamorelin is generally the growth hormone releasing peptide that we will partner with. In my vision, the ideal kind of best, cleanest, most optimized product on the market when it comes to growth hormone stimulation really is Ipamorelin. It's just not strong enough generally to be its own thing. I'm not saying it doesn't have its place, but there are people that unfortunately can't take growth hormone releasing hormones, CJC 1295 specifically, because of allergy issues. So they'll resort to taking Ipamorelin by itself, and it's very effective. But when you combine it with the CJC side, you do get this 1 + 1 = 3 type of equation.
Yeah. And so when it comes to like what are the benefits? Like, why are people taking this blend in particular?
You have from kind of like the top level down of anti-aging benefits, which is what growth hormone really is known for. So anti-aging by definition, you're talking about improved skin, you're talking about improved hair growth, nail growth, bone density improvement, muscle mass growth, the improvement of body fat composition reduction and metabolic health. So it's a metabolism stimulator. One of the really great attributes, especially by the CJ-IPA fans, is really dramatic improvement in sleep. We would recommend to use these products right before you go to bed. And man, I'll tell you, and I know you're a fan of it, your quality of sleep versus off of it is night and day. You fall right into that deep state of REM sleep. You get really vivid dreams. You wake up feeling refreshed. What happens sometimes, ironically, is people who start this will actually say, I don't sleep as good. And I'm like, is it not that you're not sleeping good? I'm like, define that. I'm like, well, I wake up at 4 a.m. now and I can't go back to bed. And I said, well, the reason why is because you don't need 8 hours of sleep as you're getting into your 40s and 50s. We need 6 hours of great sleep. So if you're used to going to bed at 10 p.m., by the time 4 o'clock rolls around, you're wide awake, because you got a really great night of 6 hours of sleep versus, getting 8 hours of on and off shitty sleep. And of course, that's why you're sleeping in until, 6 a.m. because you didn't get enough sleep to during that 6 hours that, your alternative person who's using this peptide blend can actually get. So if you're using these peptides and you're frustrated with waking up first thing in the morning or super early, I remember when I first started taking them, man, I became a 4 o'clock in the morning guy. My wife's like, go back to bed, and then my dog started getting the habit of waking up. So now I'm a 4 o'clock in the morning guy anyway. But no, you wake up because you've had enough sleep. It's not because you're sleeping bad. It's just because you're just getting good quantity of sleep hours, which is the 6 hours, but the quality of the sleep hours is explicitly better. Yeah. And if you track your sleep, with a Whoop or like one of those 8 beds or something, which I use, you'll see your REM sleep and your sleep score goes up when on this versus not.
Yeah, and I'm guessing you would also improve cognitive function as well because of that improved sleep.
Sleep is where all the magic happens as we get through the day, right? Like a good night of sleep, everything happens between how your metabolism works, how your muscle repairs, how you think throughout the course of the day. How do you feel on a good quality sleep day versus not, right? And so
super different.
And it's funny when you're younger, you just don't value your sleep, right? We're all like, "Oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Fuck that." I'm partying tonight. I can sleep on Monday. And as you get older, man, it's like the most important thing in your day is a really great night of sleep. I value sleep more than anything else. If I go out drinking or if I go out with my friends or I go to an event, I'm always thinking, how is this going to impact my sleep? And I really start to say, I'm going to sacrifice this night of enjoyment of having a drink or going to an event because I'm like, I don't want the poor night of sleep. Because a bad night of sleep to me, the cost of that and as far as my workout and my work abilities is just, it's not worth the cost, So like I'd rather give up a night out with my friends and still get a great night of sleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, CJC 1295 and Ipamorelin is a awesome sleep improver.
Quickly, before we get back to the episode, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't on whatever channel you're watching or listening to the ManLab. And if you're listening on Spotify, if you could leave a 5-star review on the channel page, that would be greatly appreciated because that will help continue to push it a little bit further for whoever is looking for information to help improve their health. Now, on the topic of information, if you are on YouTube, you can leave a comment below on this episode and we will respond to it with as much information as possible, or it might be another episode down the road. The reason this is important is because the more questions you guys ask, the more we know what we need to do to serve you guys better in future episodes. So comment on YouTube, leave a 5-star review, hit subscribe, and let's continue to help making men great again. Let's get back to the show.
And what's your recommended dosing protocol? Like, when should they take it? When's the best time? What are the prerequisites or I guess the plan?
I mean, generally right before you go to bed is ideal. And I truly stress that right before going to bed. People try to like, well, I get tired and I don't like taking my nighttime shot, so I take it, whatever at this time. And I'm like, you're really missing out on a significant amount of its abilities. It's not like an Ambien or something where it's going to put you to sleep, but you really want like it to be almost the final thing you do before jumping in bed. Now, the really rules that I tell people to make sure you follow is try not to eat for at least 1 hour prior to taking it and never eat after it. So take the shot and go to bed.
Yeah.
Go to sleep. Do not eat after. Don't have a midnight snack because you're really throwing like water on the fire that's burning. Because when your body produces insulin in response to food, you really kind of shut down the IGF-1 stimulation that you're getting from the growth hormone benefit. And like most medications or alcohol or drugs that are out there, once you consume food, you're really noticing a sobering effect of alcohol or, kind of a come down effect of other types of medications that are out there. The likewise happens here. You really kind of shut down its potency and ability to work. So every night before going to bed, as far as dosing, most good quality peptide producers have thought this through already, and they make a blend that's ideal for 1 month of use, right? So, in my experience, when it comes to the blends, and by the way, everybody says this wrong. They always say CJC Ipamorelin. It's usually dosed in Ipamorelin versus CJC. So usually the Ipamorelin is first and the CJC is next. We always talk about it backwards.
As in, like, there's more?
No. Like, when you look at the bottles, they'll be, like, generally dosed at, like, 12-6 mg. That 12 mg is representative of the Ipamorelin, and the 6 mg is representative of the CJC 1295. So usually around 12 milligrams of Ipamorelin is ideal for, like, a month's supply, and 6 milligrams of CJC 1295 is a month's supply. So you're getting about 400 micrograms of the Ipamorelin and about 200 micrograms of the CJC 1295, thus 600 total micrograms combined between 4 and 2. That's generally like the most you would need to have a great experience. Could you do less? Yeah, I do believe the ratio is almost like a 50-50. It should be like 2 times IPA to 1 time CJ to have a really nice blend. I've seen companies do like a 50-50 where they do like, a 10-10 type of deal, or not even a 50-50, like a 50% of the bottles.
Yeah.
But I don't think that ratio is right. I think you get too much CJC. And oftentimes with those people, they'll have a higher occurrence to the allergy issues that you can get with CJC 1295.
Yeah. And so with that, because we know all the benefits, what are some of the concerns or considerations people should have? Like you mentioned, there are sometimes CJC 1295 can give a little bit of an irritation at the injection point.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, like most medications, like people who have active cancer should avoid the use of peptides because there's no differentiation between what cells the body is like strengthening and reproducing, whether it be bad or good. So if you have like a tumor or you have a high level of risk of cancer, then you may want to kind of reconsider the use of any peptide, period. Obviously, pregnancy or breastfeeding, avoid these absolutely. But besides those things, when it comes to type of like peptides, site injection issues become problematic. Like where you take the shot, it can be inflamed and kind of hot and itchy. You can get some joint pains where you feel like kind of stiff and water retention. That's usually from the onset of going from a low growth hormone value to a high value quickly. you can generally tell like your joints and you feel stiff, carpal tunnel like syndrome. Some people don't sleep great, and some people, unfortunately, like they'll tell me ever since starting this, I'm getting terrible nights of sleep. And look, in a world of what we like to work with is the average person. If 80% of the people get a great night of sleep, that's how we're going to tell people to expect. You may be an outlier to that. You may be in that 20% category where this fucks up your sleep. And in those incidences, you can then shift your shot to like the morning instead of night.
Yeah.
And that is a way to do it also. So, there are people who do take multiple injections of peptides throughout the course of their day, where they'll take it at night before they sleep, and they'll take it in the morning when they wake up. And the same principle as far as eating should be applied. The half-life of this particular blend, meaning like how strong the drug is in your body, like how many hours until it's one half of that amount of the strength. The blend between the two, you're getting a long half-life, like 8 hours for the CJC 1295 and like 4 to 6 with the Ipamorelin. And I've read different studies that could give that an hour or two, better or worse on either of those peptides. But regardless, I mean, you're getting about a full night's rest. You shouldn't have to take this product multiple times a day. Or something like Ipamorelin or Tesamorelin by themselves, you would take more frequent, or you could at least, because you'd want to get that pulse rate up more often throughout the course of the day. So anyway, other side effect issues like are more site reaction. Now, we talked about allergy-based issues. Unfortunately, this peptide has a high percentage of people that, whether it happens at the beginning or through the course of use, and it can happen years after doing it. Like my wife's been using this peptide for many years and recently can't, just all of a sudden it's just starting to have a problem. And that problem, once it kind of awakens in your system, just becomes a problem that never generally goes away. And I've read somewhere before that they say your allergies kind of change every like 6 or 7 years. Like I remember I used to be really allergic to cats and now I'm not. And I don't know if it's just something I grew out of or whatever. And maybe it's just now her body's becoming more histaminically reactive to the peptides. But what happens in people is they'll take a shot and it gets red and itchy. And then that red and itchy becomes little like bumps, and those little bumps become a rash, and then that rash becomes a hot flush to the body, and then that becomes anaphylactic concern. I've had clients on an extreme level where they start seeing their palms and their feet itch, and then they get like a tightness in their neck. And I've even had a client who has to go to the hospital and get an EpiPen because they couldn't breathe. So you got to be careful,
Yeah.
and don't fall in love with this peptide.
But it has like warning signs coming up. It's
Yeah,
not
I
like
mean,
it
your
comes out of
body's,
nowhere.
well, I mean, look, I'm not going to say there's not a person that first time ever couldn't take a shot and bang, they're in that like most severe case. But most people's bodies are smart enough to tell them over a period of time, stop using this.
Yeah.
So what starts as a little bit of a nuisance and an inconvenience kind of builds into a more concern, which eventually gets into a point of the body saying, listen, man, I'm telling you, stop putting this shit in me. And now I'm going to make it so you can't breathe, or you're not going to do this again.
Yeah.
And so part of why that happens is it's a histaminic reaction. And so you could take like an antihistamine if it happens. Like you could take Benadryl and it should go away. But I don't want people thinking like, oh, I'm going to take this peptide and my way I can do it is taking Benadryl. There is a solution that we'll get to. But don't get into a mode of doing that therapeutically every single night.
Yeah.
If it does become a problem, like first off, where are you injecting it could be an issue. A lot of people do inject right around their belly buttons, and I've noticed more issues with that. I recommend to do more like love handle type of shots, like in this your flanks or it's the side of the butt, kind of thighs. Like I don't know why the front of the stomach has more issues with injections. Plus, it bruises and it looks ugly, and if you're getting leaner, like it's hard to shoot. You can even try IM, intramuscular. You don't have to do it sub-Q. So a lot of people think like, oh, I have to do this from fat. And I mean, you're really lean. So you could get to a point where you start losing areas to do it. You could literally shoot it right into your shoulder.
Oh.
Now, the difference is it goes to the body faster that way.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means it hits your body quick. So doesn't mean it's going to burn through the product quicker. It just means that between the point of it like being shot and the point of it working goes way faster. So in your case, if you're going to shoot in your shoulder, jump in bed pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay.
And that goes for most products like NAD+, GHK copper, even the GLP-1s. You can inject these things intramuscular. People think that that's going to like not work or going to make them sick or whatever the case may be. And if you have like a burning sensation from a peptide, which some people's pH doesn't agree with it, you can shoot in the muscle and it's generally way more tolerated.
Yeah. Perfect. And then so the last thing, what's the difference between like why would you do this as compared to synthetic human growth hormone, which everyone's familiar with?
I mean, number one, growth hormone is really expensive. So like if we took costs off the table, then it's always better to have your own natural production working as opposed to taking something exogenously. A peptide's asking your body to produce more of its own growth hormone. So, if you're using something that's just simply saying, hey, body, make more of my own, your body understands your own growth hormone and tends to work with it better. Plus, you get that improved sleep quality benefit that generally is not seen with growth hormone. Growth hormone has a short half-life, so you only get a jump start for a few moments, like an hour or so with actual growth hormone, where you get this improved growth hormone level from peptides for hours. And you generally have a throttle to it in the sense that your body's not going to hyperproduce some dangerous level of growth hormone. But if you were to load a big syringe of growth hormone and shoot it, you could get dangerous high levels. So like for a bodybuilder who's trying to grow exceptionally large muscle tissue, or someone who has like short stature, or if you have a child who you're trying to like prevent, their growth plates from mending and make them taller, peptides may not be able to get your level high enough to do that, where taking a lot of growth hormone, you could go as high as you want to shoot.
Yeah.
Take 5 IUs, 10 IUs, 20 IUs. I mean, it gets stupid expensive, but as much as you can inject, you could keep getting your levels higher and higher and higher. No matter how much of a peptide you shoot, there comes a point where it's only willing to do it and that's it. Then it's a waste.
Perfect. So stay away from
it. Don't think like, I'm going to take, 20 units and get a better result from it. Once you hit that max kind of like threshold of stimulation, that's it. You ain't going to stimulate something more than it is, like jump starting a car battery. Like you can't, like once it started, like you can't like overstart it, so don't just take more just to waste it.
Perfect. Cool. All right. Well, guys, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new, and also hit T-Clinics up if you wanted to give CJC and Ipamorelin a try. tclinicsusa.com, mention the ManLab, and we'll see you again next time. Peace.